Waklisi, Gausasas Kaila, Nua Uksuk Inii, Nua Modakni. Hi, my name is Kaila Farrell-Smith. I'm an artist, activist, mentor, and wilderness guide, and a co-director with the artist residency program Signal Fire. Yeah, so this is, we're doing kind of a studio visit, gallery talk, artist talk for the opening of my exhibition, solo exhibition at Liberty Arts Collaborative gallery space. I'm here in Bend, Oregon. We are on the ancestral homelands of Warm Springs, Northern Paiute, Klamath Modoc, ancestral homelands. Yakima, yeah, I'm getting up close up to the Columbia River Gorge, so I want to give that land acknowledgement. My studio practice is rooted in my ancestral homelands of Southern Oregon, the state of Southern Oregon. And I am a member. So I introduced myself in the Klamath language at the beginning. I said, "Yo, what's up? My name is Kaila." And I'm a member of I'm a rural member of the Klamath tribe. I have Klamath and Modoc descendancy. And so yeah, we're doing kind of an interesting thing here where I'm all by myself in the gallery, and this is before install, so the installation will be going up this evening. And so I'm going to kind of go through and talk about the retrospective. This is my work from the last this is work from 2016, 2017, 2018. And then, yes, so there's 3 years of retrospective work in this exhibition. A lot of the work was created at artist residencies. And so I'm going to go through and talk about those experiences and stories that have informed this work. I'm going to start by reading my artist statement about this work, because it's kind of specific to performance, dancing, music, and how the audio, the music, the inspiration from listening and movement really informed not only the palette, but also I think the mark making in this body of work. So my recent works explore movement and painting as performance. Music plays an important role influencing the flow and palette of the artist's practice, and an album that is frequented in my studio is We Are the Hallucination by a tribe called Red. Of particular importance is the poetry and lyrics of the late John Trudell in the track Alienation, featuring Lido Pimiento and Tanya Tagak, in which these new paintings are informally yet directly rooted. So here's the poem. This is a poem by John Trudell. And in the studio, in multiple different residencies, I have, my vinyl, my records, I have my music that I like to listen to. And this one always pops back up, and I get really kind of in the groove, and can really start kind of channeling and pushing size and composition. So this is by the late John Trudell. The hallucination, the human beings, the people see the spiritual in the natural through sense and feeling. Everything is related. All the things of earth and in the sky have spirit. Everything is sacred. Confronted by the alienation, the subjects and the citizens see the material religions through trauma and numb. Nothing is related. All the things of the earth and in the sky have energy to be exploited. Even themselves, mining their spirits, until souls sold into nothing is sacred, not even their self. The alienation, the alienation. Excellent. So, okay, I have, I'm gonna just kind of get started as viewers come to see this exhibition. You're gonna kind of enter into the gallery space. The main image that we're using for promotions and for kind of the cover art is the work actually in the back of the gallery, which is some of the more recent work. But chief bundle is on the back wall here. And so I'm going to go from basically Standing Rock to Santa Fe and then back to Portland, which is, so maybe before I go and talk about these paintings, I'll give a little brief background and story about who I am. And then we can jump into discussing kind of the specific work in the show. I am an Oregonian, Indigenous Oregonian, and I'm born in Ashland, Oregon in 1982 to my mother, Jane Farrell, and my father, the late Alfred Leo Smith, who walked on to his star journey in 2014. It's been, 6 years since my father has passed on, and his life and story and his experience directly informs and has informed a lot of my work and my artistic practice. He was a much older parent, and I grew up very much inspired by his story and his what he lived through here in the state as an Indigenous man, and then actually going to the Supreme Court to Washington D.C. when I was a little girl, about 7 years old, to fight his court case, Al Smith versus Oregon, which is you can look that up, and if anybody that studies law studies my father's case. And so there was a very famous or infamous decision back in 1993-94 during the Clinton neoliberal era, and there's been a lot of really bad impacts on cases from that, and then there's also been important. It's really important that they created that the restoration of the Native American Freedom of Religion Act. But I don't want to talk too much about all the legal stuff. However, that is my direct experience traveling to Washington D.C. and walking into the Supreme Court. It was actually on my dad's birthday. I think it was his 70th. It was his 70th birthday. Yeah. Strange, but very, very vivid in my memory. So that's kind of like growing up. I guess I'll premise that is that I am an activist and a water protector and land defender, and a lot of people may know me from that work. And at Signal Fire, we're an artist and activist organization, so we very much work for land justice and land justice work within that artist residency program. So kind of bringing into like the activism that's, and especially right now we're fighting a pipeline in Southern Oregon. I'm part of the organizations that are suing the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So I'm kind of carrying on that activist work that my father laid the groundwork for during my young life, and now as a professional artist and mentor, continuing to do that work within my community. So so Ashland, I always said I was like an I-5 baby. I was born in Ashland, then we lived in Roseburg, which is I think that's where my parents met, actually, Coos Bay, and then we lived. They met in Coos Bay, and then they lived in Roseburg. And then Eugene is where I grew up, and then we moved to Wiesbaden in Germany. So I lived part of the went to the Dodds School, so it was an Air Force base in Germany, and that was really, really informative for me. A really important time to get out of Oregon, out of Eugene specifically, and travel. It was really cool. So, that's really when both my parents are artists, and not professional artists, but are lover of the arts. And so I was always raised with lots of great music and art, and I've always had a studio. So, going to museums and studying all of that European art was very, very influential to me. And so at that time is also when I got out of a really terrible U.S. history class and got into an art class and met Paul Plattis. Hi, Paul, if you're listening. Paul, we've kept in touch since then, and Paul really encouraged me to think about applying for art school, and I didn't know that there was something called art school. So that was, high school was just like, I just kind of dove in and I knew what I wanted to do. And so by the time I got back to Eugene, I applied, to all the art schools and got accepted to Pacific Northwest College of Art. I'm one of the very first Dorothy Lemelson scholarship recipients. So I received a free undergrad education thanks to Dolly's generous support back in 2000. Yeah. So graduated in 2004. So yeah, like my professional career, I've spent 18 years living in Portland, Oregon. A lot of folks may know me from different events and art collaborations and projects. But I've always wanted to be a painter, and this has always been, a goal, is to do this work. So yeah, I love teaching, but the adjunct thing was just like kind of insane, and then a lot of the art schools started closing down and art centers. So my kind of red flag feelers kind of led me to wanting to leave, and that's actually a part of these two paintings. This piece is called "Get Out, Indian," and it's a fellow painting over here. I like to show them as diptychs. It's called "Under Fire," and I mean, yeah, it was under fire. It was like the city. I don't know. There's a lot of things that were happening, but mainly, I felt like I could have a bigger impact as a mentor or teacher working within my tribal community than teaching in the city. However, I'm still very much connected with a lot of those students who I've mentored and worked with, based out of Portland, Oregon, and Warm Springs, and I've traveled a lot around the state and done a lot of work, but really I wanted to reconnect with my ancestral homelands. We brought my father home, and just really realizing where he grew up, I fell in love with the place, the land, and the water. And so Modoc Point is where my father was born, and where he was raised with his mother and grandparents at Modoc Point. So that's where the Williamson River flows into the upper Klamath Lakes. And so I'm really, really connecting. That was a long time ago. So my father was stolen from his mother and grandparents, and this was a part of the Indian boarding school era. And I have the first piece I sold to the Portland Art Museum is called After Boarding School in Mourning, and it's actually more of a realistic painting, and so you can see that, and it's on their online website, and there's schools and teachers. A lot of students have gone through and they teach that painting to a lot of youth and elementary school students. So that's a resource that everyone can, if you want to learn more about that. Yeah, so that kind of brings me, so I moved home, basically. I've been in, we have the Modoc Point Ranch. It's a studio that I'm building, and it is 18 acres. I have ranch land and forest land, and building gardens, and my studio practice is rooted and based at Modoc Point Studio in my ancestral homelands. So I'm like north of Klamath Falls on the lakes, and just south of the casino, Klamoya Casino, Chiloquin, which is where our tribal community is rooted on the former Klamath Reservation. So yeah, okay, so that's kind of a background where I'm at. Since I've moved home, I have been a recipient, generous. It's been really, really an honor, huge honor, to be a Fields Artist Fellowship recipient, one of the very first of their pilot year program. So there's 4 of us, and we're going to be going to Caldera next month in August for, I think it's a week-long residency. So yeah, the show will be up during that time. So maybe we could do some kind of exchange when I'm back here for the Caldera residency. And yeah, so that Fields Artist Fellowship work has been really important, and it's been really interesting to see how my art practice has shifted since I've moved out of an urban cityscape to rural, former reservation, tribal community. And so in that shift kind of from Portland, from graduate school, from teaching, to moving into different artist residencies, all of these bodies of work were created at artist residency programs. So most of them were like a month long, and I really needed the time and space, which is what artist residencies offer artists. to calm down, slow down, not have internet, just really get it, just listen to music, dance, play, and just make this work. And because I just realized it was too much. I was, at least, was not in a place of being able to juggle adjunct teaching, signal fire co-directorship work, and having a really little studio in Portland. It just wasn't quite right. These are kind of the only two paintings, or no, there's these paintings, and then I finished those 4 over there at my Portland studio. And so yeah, that's kind of it. So this is kind of a retrospective of this past work. And before I go through outlining all of that, I'm just going to jump in and promo my next solo show, my next show. I'm not sure exactly if it's solo or if I'm going to curate and do some collaborations and collaborative, probably because it's a really big space. But it's at Ditch Projects in Springfield, Oregon, and it's November 2020. And the exhibition is called Ghost Rider, Performing Fugitive Indigeneity. And I'm working on a new series of paintings, making 55 paintings. And the paintings are called Land Back. And that's really, really important right now in reference to pipeline fighting, Indigenous sovereignty, Black Lives Matter, all of the political activist work that's ruptural at this moment. And so I'm really talking and discussing my work in terms of the academic writing about fugitive indigeneity and ruptural aesthetics, like when you flee and I'm writing a whole academic paper actually about it, a manuscript, and so that'll be dropping in December. And the goal is that I will actually be writing a book probably next year or in the future. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Oh, okay. I think it's still recording. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna go do a gallery walk. I'm gonna take a sip of water here, then we'll do a walk through. Nina Montenegro made this sticker from Signal Fire. It's a good one. Okay, so the first painting that you're going to see in the window is a piece. Okay, so I actually didn't log on to internet before I got on here, so I'm going to have to kind of go through my memory, but I did just pull up. There we go. Okay, so yeah, we're going to start with Protect the Sacred, which is a painting. I think it may be called like Sacred Mountain on my website. I need to go through and re-update titles. And so just to let everybody know, that's kind of a process for me. Like I just make a lot of work and then maybe a year, 2 years, a month. I don't know. Sometimes it takes me a while to figure out actually what the title will be. So that's a relationship I have. I do use a lot of text. Not a lot, but I do use text in my work. Sometimes the text informs how I title things. Sometimes the place, location, and color palette informs that work. So we're basically going to be hopping around from Portland, Umatilla, a Crow Shadow residency, Port Townsend, I did Centrum residency, back to Portland, then to Standing Rock. We have a large piece called Free Red Fawn, so I will be talking about that. And I have links where people can make donations to these causes. That piece is for sale. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But we can donate to the Free Red Fawn hashtag and also the Lakota Law Project. So if that piece sells, then I will be donating those funds to those projects. And then Jurassic, there's work from Jurassic. So that's Woodside, California, and I was there during Standing Rock, before Standing Rock. So yeah, this is, okay, so then we're at Woodside, California, and then we go back to Portland, Ucross. So Ucross is in Wyoming, outside of Buffalo, Wyoming, which is a really cool little town. I think we're going to Ucross in Wyoming really inspired me to want to move home and really have like a rural country life. This lighting's funny, it makes me want to clean my glasses. Okay, and then we end up at, IA. Yeah. So then we're at Santa Fe. I think I went to Santa Fe first, then I went to UCross in Wyoming. Yeah, that's right. Okay. And so then I had that big studio at IAIA in Santa Fe, and I worked on these pieces, these 4 large paintings, which I'm going to be really curious. But Destin's awesome, and I'm sure he's going to find a way to hang these paintings up in here on brick walls and rock walls. Be interesting. And I made these big paintings. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So yeah, I'll just kind of go through real quick here. We'll start at the window. So Protect the Sacred is a piece. It had a sister, brother painting that sold that was called Post-Capitalism. And this piece, Protect the Sacred, it hasn't exhibited yet, and so that's why I wanted to hang it up in the window. And it is the piece that I used when so last year. So going back to the pipeline fighting. So what you're going to see is that the pipeline fighting activism and then studio residency work kind of was all going together. And the only way I was able to make art during all of this time was because I went to these residencies and focused basically. So in last November, I was offered the governor's show. Kate Brown is the governor of Oregon, and I was offered the governor's show, which is said to be a lifetime honor. And I declined because at that time, up until that whole summer, all last year, Kate Brown had remained neutral and pretty silent on this issue, and we, have been 4 years, or I've been, 4 years since Standing Rock, campaigning and doing community organizing, grassroots organizing, doing a lot of public speaking, doing presentations and teaching about this project and why it is so insane. And that's really the word I'm using for it. It's insane. We cannot build any more fossil fuel infrastructure because of climate chaos. So that's the other huge part of who I am and what my work is that I've been an environmental activist, community organizer, grassroots organizer since I graduated from PNCA, my undergrad. So since 2004 is when I started working as a grassroots organizer, field manager, community organizer, and fundraiser for environmental activist campaigns and I worked primarily with the PIRGs, the public interest research groups, Augsburg. And then that transformed into Environment Oregon and Augsburg. And I did a lot of work in canvassing for Sierra Club and Human Rights Campaign, and then traveled all around the country to do Environment America, which is the US PIRG turned into Environment America. So I've done a lot of this work over a long time, and just really realized that we weren't making any change, basically, at all. And so I spent, of decades doing this work, and that's why I went back to grad schools, because I realized that my art is powerful. Art is a really, really powerful tool, and it's a really powerful tool to teach. And so that's sort of the merging of the art and activism and where I got to. So to be able to continue to build my practice doing the residency work was important. So this piece, Protect the Sacred, I wrote a opinion letter in the Oregonian, and they didn't publish it when I first sent it to them. I didn't have any response from the Oregonian. So my colleague and friend and fellow board member at Rogue Climate, Emma Maris, she submitted the letter for me, and then it was accepted and published in the Oregonian. And this is the painting that accompanies that in that piece. And so the Herald and News in Klamath Falls also republished it, and they used actually a photo of me and my other colleague, Asa Wright. And so that's the first piece. And then the other piece you're going to see up at the front is Kaila, which is my name, Kaila. It's another way of spelling it. It's a guttural, it's a Klamath word, and it's my namesake. And Kaila is actually pronounced, it's like a guttural, Kaila. And I'm not saying it right. My dad always said, no, that's not how you say it. And he'd say it. And I just basically am not good at speaking Klamath and barely can speak any Klamath. Just being honest. So but there's a lot of language. There's so many great people teaching Klamath, and there's language speakers in my community, and I have once we kill this black snake, once we stop this pipeline and protect our water, I'm ready to just get down and learn. I just want to do language classes and weave baskets and eat wokus and eat salmon, but we got to get the salmon back. So anyway, sorry. So that's my namesake of that piece. So that print though is a representation. So I have 3 pieces in the show of my printmaking work from Crow's Shadow, and so I'm wanting to highlight that all of those prints are for sale at the Crow's Shadow website. So this is a series of 20 prints. This piece is from my collection. I have, I think I had 2 from the. I have to look at all the paperwork. Anyways, they're in collaboration with Judy Bauman, master printer Judy Bauman. She's phenomenal. I had such a fun time working with her and Jamie. And so this is the print. So it's a 2-layer lithos. So basically I had 5 practice prints. So there's like the blooper reel, and then I have my 2 prints. So I think I have 7 prints. So this is one of the blooper reels that's in this show. And it's for sale, and we could talk about, I don't know if we're doing donations or fundraising or for different programs in the area, but I'd love to talk more about that. And if buyers are interested, you can go to the Crow's Shadow website to view all of whatever's left of that series. And okay, cool. So then we're going to move down to the right onto the, I think that's north. I think that's north wall. I don't have the gallery map with me right now. So these 2 pieces, and actually the one on the left was created when I was that's in Portland, and when I was at the Rainmaker residency in Portland. Yes, I was there for a year, and so that was a series. So that was like 2015, 2016, and I selected one piece from that series, and that's on the left, and that piece is called Uxk'ini'i, which in Klamath means I am Klamath. I'm really like 1-2 years old. I'm like a toddler starting to learn how to speak in my Indigenous tongue form. I'm sorry. I spaced. The Ka'ila print is named after me, Ka'ila, and my name means earth, land, and creation, and that's my namesake. And it was found in the mythology. So it's part of our Klamath mythology and origin myths. So the mythological character of Earth, the land, and creation, and our origin stories is Ka'ila, and so that's where my name comes from. And I found that, or my parents found it in a book up at Crater Lake. I've actually now found that book and purchased it. And so I use and share those mythologies like in Signal Fire readers and curriculum. Okay, so Uxk'ini'i is the 48 by 36 on the left, and the piece is on the right, so that's a pretty large piece. And so that piece has, at this time I was in a basket weaving residency fellowship, excuse me. Can't remember which foundation that came from, but we can figure that out. But anyways, I was in a weaving mentorship with Pat Courtney Gold was my mentor, and we had weekly weaving sessions up at Oregon College of Arts and Craft before they, when they were still around. And it was such a beautiful campus and space. So I was a mentor for the Journeys in Creativity program, which is Native youth camp, high school age, 15 to 19. So I was a mentor and really kind of a student because I wasn't raised like learning my Indigenous art practices and forms. So I have completely Western fine art training and Eurocentric fine art training. And so learning like weaving and carving and stuff was really fun and exciting for me. So I talk about that in my teaching philosophy, like I have this intergenerational model, and so I'm learning along with you, and so I'm kind of student and teacher, and that's sort of how I frame my mentoring practice. So anyways, I'm weaving really weird, awkward, abstract baskets, but in our tradition master basket weavers, they have these beautiful designs, and they're really specific to our tribe and our culture. and even in like its relationship to downriver tribes with the Karuk, Yurok, Hoopa. And so we share, the waterways, the Klamath River. And so our weaving ties us together. That's our culture. Our reeds, our cattail and tule come from the water. And so the cultural stuff is really, really important in what is being threatened by this pipeline and what's tying and linking us together as people, as nations, as salmon people, is the Klamath River. So I'm from the headwaters, and then, we're related downriver. So that basket weaving and those designs are really important. And I'm so my basket weaving mentor is Pat Courtney Golden. She was a mathematician. And that is like the best, that's like the profession to have if you're going to become a basket weaver. So, so anyways, you're going to see basket weaving, some of our Klamath designs in some of these paintings. Oh, there it is right there. Okay, weird. There we go. Yeah, so this is Gak Kolank. So you'll see some of this text in some of it, and that's crows bending knees. It's like cronies. Yeah, you have to watch crows and then you'll get it. Okay, and so that's a repeated design and image you'll see in a lot of this work. Okay. Let's see, I think I started a little after 3, so I'm gonna move on. Okay, then we're going to Standing Rock. So then I went to Jurassic in August of 2016, which was like when the pipeline company was sicking dogs on water protectors. And I was like watching, I was at this fancy residency. It was the fanciest residency I've ever been to. We had a chef and everything. And it was great. It was wonderful. Woodside, California, just a beautiful place. But I love that. Yeah, it was an incredible time, incredible residency. I'd love to apply and go back, actually. I think I might do that soon, maybe next year. But during that time, I'm teaching and reading the book, Indigenous Peoples' History of the United States by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz, and reading about the gold rush and the California genocide of Indigenous people, the name of that road, the missionaries, it's a bloody genocidal history. On all my family's birth certificates, when I go back and do my familial research, like it doesn't say Klamath Modoc, and it doesn't say our tribe or clan name. So all of that was lost to me personally. So I am in this process of learning who I am, who my dad was, and who our people are. And so yeah, that's the ancestral research that that's a part of all of this work, but really also a part of the specific exhibition coming up in November. And all it says on my family's birth certificates is California Indian, I-N-D-I-N. So, like I have that ancestral connection to this California, the gold rush. We had the Modoc War, the lava beds, just water wars. We've been in water wars with the ranchers and the agricultural, the big ag community for a really long time. And so this is, and that's not over either. That's on top of fighting the fossil fuel industry and the pipeline, the Canadian pipeline, by the way, too. It's a foreign Canadian pipeline. They want to shove it through all of Southern Oregon to ship this Canadian frat gas from like Colorado to Asian markets. So none of this would be benefiting the Oregonians. Sorry, that's like my last little pipeline pitch. I don't want to spend all this time to like give you updates about that campaign, but it is important. And I guess to follow up, I'll follow up at the end because I'm still talking about other pipelines in Standing Rock. So, okay. So yeah, so that's that work. Then I went, the 2 little pieces were from Port Townsend in 2016. And that was, that was in October, so right before the 2016 election. They're kind of crazy paintings. It was a crazy time. It's been a crazy last few years. So then sitting in Jurassic, making these paintings that have the lavender in them and the basket designs and the kind of the white mountains. It's kind of an abstract landscape. And ideally, I really would love to keep this series together as all 5 paintings. And, I'm really working, to sell pieces as diptychs and as a series of 5. If I have to sell them individually, like I don't know, I'm sort of torn right now on if I want to break up these series, basically. But I really love these pieces together as a series of 5. And so, I can't remember. I don't have internet in here, so I can't remember the series name. But the titles are Savage, Tatanka, Unerasing Indian, Miniwachoni, which is Water is Life in Lakota, and Savage Systems, and Get Out. Oh, yeah, Get Out Indian. That's over here. That's behind me. Okay, so yeah, there's the Jurassic pieces, so that has the lavender. And then when you hop over across that wall is the really big, large banner, the big, large painting that I mentioned earlier called Free Red Fawn. And so that piece was started at Rainmaker Residency in Portland, and then I kind of rolled it up, threw it in the van, and we drove out to Standing Rock and took our prayers for my ceremony to Osheti Shakoan camp, and I met my Samics and colleague Asa Wright at Osheti Shakoan camp at the art tent, and I was just screen printing and working in the art tent. And then when I got breaks, it was like we rolled in. This was right before Thanksgiving, which was a really epic day there. It was really beautiful and powerful, really powerful. And but it was after the water cannons. They were freezing in the cold water. We were sleeping in the snow in Montana. I was watching on Facebook the shooting water cannons at everybody, elders, and yeah. So we got there after that. There was a lot of trauma. So I'm thinking about art as healing, and I laid out those canvases and we finished that. So that whole piece is a collaborative piece, and there was a lot of people that were on the front lines, and there were medics during that situation who just came to art tent and were like, I just need to paint or make some art today to process and cope through that extremely frightening, visceral, traumatic experience. So that's what that piece is. And at that same time, Red Fawn had been arrested. I don't know. I have to follow up on that specific campaign, and I have a link in here to the hashtag Free Red Fawn and a GoFundMe fundraiser, which didn't really get off the ground, and I want to roll back and bring attention to the Free Red Fawn campaign and bring awareness to this audiences and viewers to that. And you should learn more about it. But she was arrested and I think there was FBI informants. I have to go back through and read that story, but that's what that image on there is, that we were doing spray painting and stencils of a lot of flags so that we went into the courtrooms, we could represent visually, because they don't let you bring in big banners or posters and stuff like that, or signs. So it's a form of like how art transforms with rules and regulations and legal issues and stuff like that. So that piece is for sale, and proceeds will go to the Free Red Fawn campaign and the Lakota People's Law Project. All right. So then I have my two, so that's kind of Standing Rock. So there's Standing Rock, and then there's post Standing Rock, which for me has led to me moving back home, and completely, my whole entire life has changed since then. So let's jump over. Okay, so I talked about these paintings were made in Portland. This one is Under Fire. Excuse me, this is Get Out Indian, and this the sister brother painting is Under Fire. And on this wall is works on paper. So there's my two. Excuse me, I'm gonna take a sip of water. Okay, so there's these two pieces from Crow Shadow. So I did the monoprint series, which is up at the front, the Kaila print, and then I have two 5-layer lithography prints in collaboration with master printer Judy Bauman from Crow Shadow Institute of the Arts, which is from Umatilla, Oregon, which is on the Umatilla Indian Reservation. And it's a wonderful studio. It's created by James Lavador. And it's just go visit Umatilla, but not right now during COVID-19. Don't go anywhere near any tribal communities. Mask up. Okay, so I did those prints, 5-layer lithographs, and The first piece is called Red Coyote for Pitsup, and Pitsup in Klamath means dad or father. So my dad's restaurant name was Red Coyote, which is really funny because when you go into a restaurant, you'd have to sign your name down. And he never wanted to write Al Smith because he presented as Indian with his long braids and his big hats. And people were like seeing a real Indian for the first time, and he didn't want to disappoint the spectators, so he called it his restaurant name, and he would write Red Coyote. So when they called the table for Red Coyote, and we'd all walk by, and Dad would like walk through, and yeah, I think I talk about it as like these interesting strategies of fighting white supremacy and systemic racism, like how do people, how do you cope with that in such a white state? And Oregon is historically, we're learning that as a community now through the Black Lives Matter movement and the Land Back and Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women movements. So it's the history of this place. And so I think about my father with, so that's what that print is for. And so I brought it home, hung it on my mom's wall, because I have some of my collection, and she said, "Look," to my brother, "look what Al transformed into." So I think that's cool. That's kind of the story of that, is my dad sort of morphed into this cool print. And then the other print is sort of my brain. It's kind of sort of very abstractly figurative, and it's called Alien Invasion 1492. And so in that piece has the unerasing Indian in it as well. And so that's been, I think just kind of an overall conceptual place that I've been at, is using white and different whites to represent both white supremacy, erasure, and the sublime from more of a historical place in art history and painting. So I play around in different forms with the white paint as and also a note taking, sort of this going back to like a white page, and you're just taking notes. So dictation and notation is becoming a really important tool in my practice. Okay, so Crow Shadow. So go to Crow Shadow website if you want to check out those prints. They're editions. Each of them have an edition of 18. Then, okay, U-Cross. These two pieces are cool. I'm almost done. I got, like 2 more things to talk about. Okay. These 2 pieces are from U-Cross. I did a lot of work at U-Cross, which is in Wyoming. And these 2 are very different for me, but I like where I'm getting back to. For me, I'm a figurative and landscape trained artist and painter and draftswoman. So I love drawing, getting back to just drawing and basics, and playing around with collage a little bit. So, but there is some these are figurative, and kind of they're self-portraits, abstract self-portraits. So the one on the left is called Selfie with UFO, and Selfie 2.0. And at this time, it was wildfires. Oh man, just the wildfire, the living through smoke in the summers. And I work for Signal Fire, so like being out hiking and taking groups out during wildfire season has been really hot, really rough, really, really hard. So the smoke in Wyoming, it was during the gorge fires, but also the Montana fires. And so Wyoming was just getting swept. We were just stuck in the smog, and I was terrified of watching the gorge burn and having to drive home from Wyoming all the way to Oregon. It was scary. So that's what those pieces are about. And I hung those in the at Disjecta in the Portland Biennial last year with one of my new paintings, which will be at Ditch Projects. And it was kind of like the wildfire smoke and selfies, and it was my response to the Jordan Cove pipeline fight. And the other painting in that piece was called No Man Camps Missing Her. And so since I've moved home, and I'm very actively and publicly a pipeline fighter and taking on fossil fuel industry, we've had articles that have come out from, I think The Guardian covered it. Will Parrish from Standing Rock has been covering and following and doing investigative journalism and research, and especially with how much money Pembina, the Canadian corporation that owns Jordan Cove, is spending in the state of Oregon, not only on ad campaigns, but also they funded I believe they hired 9 police in Coos Bay that were trained to just protect the export terminal. So we're seeing this corporate funded police forces and task forces to protect objects and locate and capitalism basically. And they already had the like MRAP, the big tanks. So just seeing the militarization of police forces and watching that happen in Oregon since Standing Rock has been really intense. And like when I was at Salem at the Department of State Lands testifying, and I was speaking to the crowd at a large audience, and Jordan Cove had all of these guys, I think, wearing neon hats. That's how you knew the Jordan Cove. They were giving their public statements, but they have German Shepherd dogs, and I was getting sniffed the dogs on me. And anyway, so it was really intense. So just, I guess, like the fear of like, I could go missing, and that the missing and murdered Indigenous women issue is real. And now that I've been connected with the pipeline fights up along the Pacific Northwest up into KKK Canada, the RCMP, and learning about the missing and murdered Indigenous women and the Highway of Tears, it's really terrifying. And so I really am devoting my work now to discussing that when in any major energy, basically it's not just fossil fuels. So yeah, I don't want an LNG pipeline, but I also don't want a mega solar field to power a data center in Southern Oregon. I'm also going to fight that. So, whatever comes next, it's just like we're fighting corporations and corporate money and corporate power here in the state of Oregon. So if in an abstract sense, if my artwork can discuss and react and bring awareness to that through my writing, that's sort of where I'm moving to bridge my activism and art. So those 2 pieces in that Portland Biennial accompanied, and in their catalog accompanied my letter that I wrote to the governor, which was published during this time. And so that's kind of the Portland Biennial that taught to kind of cover my work in that. Okay, so then there's a couple little paintings from my Portland studio. They're called Homelands, and it's kind of the povera, that poor art one is. It's just an art joke because I love art de povera from post-World War II Italy. Just the little paintings. I've always been fascinated by post-World War II artists, especially in Europe and in Germany, kind of post Holocaust and Nazis and war, and that's always been a very big influence in my practice. So then, on the left over here are, on the brick wall, are this series of 4 paintings. They're called Alienation, The Lines, and it's kind of a direct, indirect reference to John Treadell's poem that we read earlier at the beginning, and so if you want to maybe get a deeper understanding about that and when John Treadell says the lines, you can watch, there's a documentary, it used to be on Netflix, called Trudell, and you can learn about his life. He's a poet, he's a prophet, Indigenous prophet from Alcatraz. He was the radio spokesperson at Alcatraz. My father went down to Alcatraz when the American Indians overtook reoccupied and took back Alcatraz. And so that's a part of our kind of political history. Anyways, so that's I'm rooting that in this whole show. And then we'll end with back at Santa Fe, the big paintings in the back here. They're fun. They're just big vintage. They're like it's Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe. And they have a really beautiful campus and program, and they've been around for decades and decades. And so these pieces were fun. I just found these banners, and I was like, and I had a huge studio, and I was like, I'm gonna make some big paintings, and this is what happened. So, and I literally was like listening to this album, like dancing and like jumping up and down and being able to like just being as a mark maker, the physicality of going from a very small panel to a really big piece is what's so intriguing for me. So we'll end with there's Time Bundle, Kai Bundle. That's me, Kai Bundle, the one that's just kind of an abstract. And then Chief Bundles in the end is the piece we're using for promos and stuff, PR. And then the little funny piece in the back that's hanging, well, hopefully if you can figure out how to hang it, is called, I named a lot of these pieces Alienation, but that one's, I'm calling it the Bundy Bundle, because it's like I got this a map of Malheur Refuge. We took a single fire trip out to Malheur Refuge after the Bundys took it over, and all that stuff happened. Like, right, it was like Standing Rock, and then like the Bundys came into Oregon, and so we met with Jarvis. He used to be a tribal council member out at Burns Paiute, and me and my dad always drove through Burns on our way to Winnemucca to go down to ceremony at Winnemucca in Nevada. Paiutes are our homies. Yeah, I was conceived in Reno. So yeah, the motorcycle gangs, the motorcycle Indians are like my people. And so sorry, that was a lot of information, but it's cool. I talk about my anyways. So yeah, those paintings are fun. Santa Fe was cool. That's a whole scene. But yeah, that Bundy painting, it kind of tripped me out because Jarvis was like, the Bundys, they were like down with, they thought he was from Standing Rock, and he's like, no, I'm from Burns Paiute. Like, this is my ancestral homelands here, you're on. And they couldn't comprehend it, and they like wanted to be down, and they were like wanting to be like, we're like you, like this is like Standing Rock. And he was like, no, brah, like this is not like that's not what this is. So it was very strange, to interview, or to get to talk with him on that trip. But so I found these maps, and so I wrapped that map. I think I started that piece at UCross as well. Yeah, I was doing some weird map paintings when I was in Wyoming at UCross, and I sprayed it, and it also is sort of a little bit figurative, and then there was like a weird eye, and so I just called it an alien. It looked like an alien to me, so I was like, it's an alien painting. And I found these rocks, and I spray painted that chartreuse color, which I've been fascinated with, and they look like balls. I was like, I got you by the balls, by the cojones. And so that's sort of what that painting's about. And I make a lot of cordage. That's another of the basket weaving thing. And so I just strung it up, and it was sort of like, I caught it. I caught something. I caught one. And I like it next to the Chief Bundle. So those two, there's a cool interaction happening with those two. All right, that's the show. That's what I got. I think I was planning to talk for 45 minutes. I believe I'm going over here, probably more in the hour. So I'm going to stop this here, and let's see. Thank you very much for hosting me, Bend, and At Liberty Collaborative. I'm really excited to have the opportunity during this pandemic, during this global pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, to have the opportunity to have an exhibition and actually get the work up. And I really appreciate all the precautions that the businesses here in Bend are taking with all the masks and hand sanitizer at the front of every entrance to every business. I really do appreciate that. And I guess I'll just end kind of with a public safety announcement, which I kind of mentioned in joking in the middle, that we, in Oregon right now, there's an MRG foundation. It's called the Choosh Foundation, and Choosh is the word for water up in the Warm Springs res. So when you say Choosh, so we say umbo is our word in Klamath for water. Choosh is the water blessing you give when you're at ceremony in the Warm Springs community. And so we always bless our water before we eat or at a feast. And so Choosh, I want to give the water blessing for Warm Springs, because they're having a crisis during the COVID-19 pandemic where they don't have running water. And this is the same thing that's happening in Navajo Nation. And it's just spreading. So this disease is the colonizer's virus. It spreads, and it's devastating to Indigenous communities, to tribal communities. So at this time, I just ask, I know it's summertime and we've been locked up and on lockdown for 3 or 4 months. And believe me, I want to get out and hit the water and go swimming. But it is spreading, and it's spreading. We've had, first cases down in Southern Oregon. So I just want to really ask that people be really respectful of the Indigenous communities and tribal communities who are, this is hitting them really hard. The global pandemic, the biological crisis, the economic crisis, and the water, the infrastructure. So, as a state of that is on, we have a lot of water, and this is unacceptable that cities, wealthy places like Bend and Portland are just reopening and everybody's just out on the rivers. I'm seeing everybody here. It's July 7th. No masks on. I'm seeing people walk around. So it's really terrifying. And please don't go to Warm Springs and spread the disease. And if go and bring masks and go make donations. And there, I think the foundation, the MRG Foundation, the Chush Foundation, it started at 10,000. We raised that in under 24 hours. I think it's last time I checked, it was up to 65,000. We've now changed the goal from 100,000 to, and I say they, I mean, I'm not one of the people running it, but I'm a donor. I donated and shared. So please do that. You can find that on my social media Facebook account, the Chush Foundation. So we want to get them to 200 million. Chush Umbo. And I also just want to give a shout out to all the Indigenous activists, creatives, and leaders who have been working tirelessly for so many years on stopping the Jordan Cove pipeline and export terminal and compressor station in Malin, Oregon, this whole project we call the Jordan Cove Energy Projects. So I want to use any platform that I have right now to just ask you to please do the research. You can find on my website, KailaFarrell-Smith.com, which I'm sure the galleries can link to learn more about who I am, who my family is, what my role has been in this story, and that as a Klamath tribal member, I'm also on the board of Rogue Climate, and Rogue Climate is one of the organizations in Southern Oregon that was suing Jordan Cove Energy Projects and suing the Federal Energy Regulatory Committee, which the acronym we call FERC. So Oregon's going to be we're moving into court cases, and my story will be heard by a judge. So that's sort of where I'm at in that place. So yeah, it has been difficult with the COVID relief funding. So really encourage you all. This is a great time to enjoy art, buy art, and yeah, let's get some beauty, energy, and movement into our lives. And but please stay safe. All right, thanks you all. Peace.